I note the resolution does talk about in particular a financial interest, and I note that the resolution doesn't indicate employment necessarily being does not automatically constitute a conflict of interest. But given the declaration in particular is seeking to understand financial interests, I think that is why essentially one of the motivations for the introduction of the word commercial. And I've seen one support. I haven't seen questions, although I see the United States now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We appreciate the opportunity to take the mic on this issue. We want to just support the comments from our North American representative that we would like to have an opportunity to be able to consider the suggested amendment to Israel. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, so I'm getting some different reactions. I'm trying to think of the most efficient path forward. I have heard one party speaking in support of Israel's amendment. I haven't, and I've heard another party speaking just in terms of taking some time to consider. Should we go that route? My suggestion would be to adopt Annex 2 as it's found in the document, and then ask for the Standing Committee to consider Israel's potential amendments and bring it back for consideration at the next meeting. And in the interim, the Annex 2 document would be used. I could really use guidance from the members of the Standing Committee in terms of your preferred approach. Do we accept the amendment from Israel, or do we take note of the amendment from Israel and ask the Standing Committee, giving parties then a time to reflect on that amendment? So, Standing Committee members, I am looking to you for your guidance. Israel, please.
Thank you, Chair. It might be possible to ask the North American how much time they would need to consult. If perhaps by this afternoon they could have an answer, then maybe it would just be the conclusion of this document item later in the day, as opposed to at the next Standing Committee meeting.
North America?
We would agree with the suggestion made by Israel. We should have enough time to discuss this by the afternoon. Thank you.
Any other members of the Standing Committee wish to react? Indonesia, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As this is the first time Indonesia taking floor, we would like to thank the government of Panama for hosting the meeting. Indonesia agree with the chair suggestion to discuss this for the next SGA meeting, to give time for other countries, parties regarding the amendment as suggested from Israel. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think I saw some nods. China and then Kuwait. China, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since this is the first time China makes intervention during this meeting, we want to express our thanks to governments of Panama to host this meeting. China supports the way proposed by the chair for this issue. Thank you.
Kuwait.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to align with my colleague from Indonesia and move this to look at this subject in the Standing Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your guidance, Standing Committee members. Based on what I've heard, I think I will stick with my proposal to take note of the proposed amendment from Israel and invite the 7th meeting of the committee to consider that proposed amendment. And it's also my conclusion thus far that therefore the committee is comfortable adopting the minorly amended disclosure form as found in Annex 2. C, please.
Señora Presidenta, la primera vez que venimos, queremos agradecer la gentileza del Gobierno de Panamá por esta reunión y también por este magnífico centro de convenciones que nos acoge. Nosotros estamos de acuerdo con la propuesta en esto, digamos, en la próxima reunión y esa es nuestra posición por el momento. Gracias.
Thank you, Peru. So based on interventions, I conclude that the Standing Committee agrees on the use of the disclosure form found in Annex 2 to the document, takes note of the proposed amendment from Israel, and agrees to consider the amendment at its next meeting. SC 7. Thank you. With that, I think we've concluded our discussion of Doc 6. And I will now turn our attention to the next item on the agenda, SC 75.7.1, and I will ask the Secretariat to introduce this document. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. At the outset, I would mention that the document was posted recently in light of the close time number of verification missions for the COP. The Secretariat has made maximum efforts to fulfill the mandate given at 74 in within our resources. I would also like to highlight that substantial reporting on conclusions and findings in relation to potential compliance cases will be provided to the 7th meeting of the Standing Committee. We will ensure that all information provided by parties in recent weeks and months has been analysed and all technical missions recommended by the Standing Committee completed before substantive discussion takes place. Documents SC 75 Doc 7.1 provides an update on activities of the Secretariat to implement the Standing Committee's recommendations on the potential compliance measures introduced in to SC 74 pursuant to Article 13 of the Convention. Parties are reminded that these matters are only potential compliance matters, and we are still in the initial steps of the process set out in Resolution 14.3. Let me also remind that a supportive and non-adversarial approach is taken towards compliance matters in CITES, and due process is always to be observed. The Secretariat is grateful to the management authorities of the parties involved for their prompt cooperation with our requests for information and for extending invitations to undertake verification missions. Firstly, concerning trade in live Asian elephants between the Lao People's Democratic Republic and China during 2010 to 2018, which is described at paragraphs 4 to 8 of the present document, the Secretariat remains in close contact with the parties involved. China has extended an invitation to the Secretariat to undertake a technical mission. In light of measures related to the COVID-19 pandemic, it was agreed in consultation with China to postpone this mission until after COP19. Further information on engagement with the Lao People's Democratic Republic on this matter is contained in document 722. In the matter concerning trade in Pericopsis elata from Cameroon, Cameroon has extended an invitation to the Secretariat to undertake a technical mission. As reported in paragraphs 9 to 11 of the present document, this mission has been postponed to the first quarter of 2023. An online meeting has been held between the Secretariat and Management Authority to plan the agenda of this mission, and we remain in close contact with Cameroon on this. Next, in the matter concerning registration of operations breeding Appendix 1 animal species in captivity for commercial purposes in the European Union and in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, the Secretariat thanks these parties involved for their open cooperation, in both cases providing written inputs and extending invitations to the Secretariat to undertake verification missions. Concerning the EU, as reported in paragraphs 14 to 11 of this document, the Secretariat undertook verification missions to Germany and to Spain during October 2022. The European Union has explained through written responses the manner in which it regulates captive breeding facilities under the EU wildlife trade regulations and submitted a compilation of information from member states which is being analysed by the Secretariat to be reported to SC77. Concerning the United Kingdom, the Secretariat undertook a verification mission in October 2022, including visits to registered and non-registered facilities breeding Appendix 1 birds of prey in captivity for commercial purposes. The United Kingdom provided written inputs explaining how captive facilities are regulated under domestic laws, and provided further detailed information on trade of bred birds in the UK, being analysed by the Secretariat to be reported to SC77. Paragraph 27 to 23 of the President's Statement concern timber trade to Vietnam. The Secretariat would like to thank Vietnam for its cooperation in providing written responses and inviting the Secretariat to undertake a verification mission. This mission took place in early October 2020. Meetings with and scientific authorities, customs, police and forestry officials, as well as private operators and NGOs. A significant volume of reporting and information was provided and is being analysed by the Secretariat. More substantive reporting will be provided to the 77th meeting of the Standing Committee. On the matter of trade in birds to Bangladesh, the Secretariat has written to the CITES authorities of Bangladesh to seek further information and awaits their response. I will now pass to the Chief of the Legal Unit to introduce a new potential compliance matter.
Muchas gracias. Rápidamente para decir que además de estos casos que ya fueron presentados a la reunión 74 del Comité Permanente, la Secretaría, por invitación de Perú, realizó una visita técnica tras el taller regional de reducción de la demanda en septiembre de este año. Y esa visita tenía como objetivo apoyar a las autoridades CITES en el fortalecimiento de la aplicación de las CITES sobre los tiburones. Y esa es una nueva recomendación adicional a la de notar todos los progresos realizados con el mandato que ustedes nos dieron en marzo de este año, para que el Comité Permanente considere la recomendación contenida en el párrafo 43b en relación con el comercio de especímenes de tiburón entre Ecuador y Perú, y que al igual que las misiones que nos mandataron de hacer en la reunión pasada, se solicite a la Secretaría que investigue más a fondo este caso y formule recomendaciones al Comité Permanente en su reunión número 77, así como que la Secretaría continúe en estrecha comunicación y reforzando la cooperación con Ecuador y Perú sobre este posible caso, y solicite a Ecuador una invitación para proporcionar asistencia, realizar una evaluación técnica y una misión de verificación para comprender cómo las autoridades CITES garantizan que los especímenes de tiburón se adquieren y exportan de manera legal en pleno cumplimiento de la Convención. Gracias, señora Presidenta.
Thank you, Secretariat. The Standing Committee is invited to take note of the report from Secretariat. And the Standing Committee is also invited to recommend the Secretariat continue to keep an eye on the cases, including following up on the latter case involving sharks. Secretariat just provided in the document. So you're invited to take note. I'll start first in comments from members of the Standing Committee. I'll start with Peru, followed by Israel. please. You have the floor.
Gracias, Presidenta. Agradecemos a la Secretaría de CITES por la visita técnica realizada en septiembre al Perú, con la finalidad de apoyar a las autoridades en el fortalecimiento de la aplicación de la Convención sobre los tiburones. En el se contó con la participación de las autoridades administrativas, la autoridad científica y las entidades de relevancia del Perú, así como las autoridades CITES del Ecuador. Dicha visita facilitó el establecimiento de puntos de interés común en ambos países, lo que permitirá fortalecer la hoja de ruta que ya se encuentra. Reconocemos la importancia de implementar acciones conjuntas con una gestión integral de nuestras especies silvestres. Parte de este esfuerzo también incluye la priorización de los tiburones de importancia para las comunidades pesqueras locales en espacios naturales consultivos, como la Comisión Permanente del Pacífico Sur, la Comisión Interamericana del Atún Tropical y las organizaciones regionales de ordenamiento pesquero del Pacífico Sur. Asimismo, conscientes de la complejidad de la gestión de estas especies migratorias, reafirmamos nuestro compromiso de priorizar su ordenamiento en los espacios de articulación binacional del más alto nivel técnico y político, con miras a que el establecimiento de cuotas de comercio de aletas de tiburón contenga un enfoque de periodicidad definida y medidas de gestión pesquera para garantizar su sostenibilidad. De igual forma, considerando el proceso de mejora continua, el Perú tiene el compromiso de mejorar los sistemas de toma de información que garanticen la trazabilidad en la cadena de valor de las pesquerías, lo que conlleva a la necesidad de articular esfuerzos con Ecuador, considerando los altos niveles de comercio provenientes de dicho país. Cabe indicar que desde el año 2014, año en que se incluyeron los tiburones comerciales del país en los apéndices de las CITES, hemos logrado implementar las siguientes medidas de ordenamiento orientadas a garantizar el aprovechamiento sostenible de los condrictios: establecimiento de cuotas de pesca y vedas, determinación de factor de conversión del tiburón amarillo, prohibición de la captura y comercialización de la mantarraya gigante, tiburón ballena y pez sierra, establecimiento de puntos autorizados de desembarque y descargue, establecimiento de sistemas de emisión de certificado de desembarque de tiburón y prohibición del desembarque de aletas sueltas. El Perú ratifica su compromiso de seguir avanzando en la implementación de las CITES para las especies de tiburones y hacemos un llamado a la cooperación, así como a los países productores e importadores para lograr una visión regional. Como sabemos, la gestión de estas especies demandará de esfuerzos que van más allá de las capacidades nacionales, por lo que agradeceremos a la Secretaría por apoyarnos en este trabajo articulado. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Peru. I'll turn next to Israel, please. Israel, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We would preface by saying that we see these compliance issues as a major importance, and we thank the Secretariat for taking proactive steps to take care of matters that appear to be heading towards an Article 13 compliance issue and dealing with them before it gets to that stage. Having said that, there are a very limited number of cases here in this document. Later in this meeting, in document 11, there's discussed a case there which, in our mind, also should be considered by the Secretariat as one that's approaching an Article 13 compliance issue, and we would seek your guidance, Chair, as to how to perhaps add this to the list of recommendations here in document number 7.1. Specifically, we're talking about document 11, paragraphs 6 through 14, which discuss trade in live tortoises from Jordan. The conclusion in document 11 says that the Secretariat will continue to consult with Jordan and will update the Standing Committee orally should it receive any further response. Without going into document 11 too much at this time, we would seek your guidance how we can perhaps keep document 7.1 open or or something like that, so that we can add this issue into document 7.1 as something for the Secretariat to continue to deal with as a issue that's approaching Article 13 compliance. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Israel. With regard to the issues in document 11, we'll address those when we get to document 11. With regard to Article 13 compliance issues, my understanding is that in accordance to Article 13, some of the triggers for that are the Secretariat receiving information, and so I don't think it's a question of the Standing Committee adding issues to the document or to the table, but rather parties identifying concerns or the Secretariat self-identifying concerns and instigating an Article 13 process that way. So if you as a party have issues you wish to raise, I would invite you to speak with the Secretariat. Regarding the issues in Doc 11, we will address those as a committee in Doc 11 and determine what the committee feels is the appropriate forward action at that point and give our advice at that moment. I hope that's clear. Thank you. So I will turn our attention to document 7.1 again, and I will again continue to seek comments from members of the Standing Committee, and I will also open the floor to observer parties. I will start with our colleagues from North America, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The North American region notes the report from the Secretariat regarding progress made on issues identified under Article 13 of the Convention as called for in Resolution Comp 14.3 Rev Cop 18 on compliance matters and procedures. The North American region wishes to take this opportunity to recommend that with respect to compliance matters, that the Standing Committee and Secretariat keep the scientific committees apprised of scientific issues that arise during any stage of these processes and consults with the scientific committees as appropriate. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, North America. So again, I will continue to seek comments from members of the committee, and I've also opened the floor to observer parties. I have the European Union requesting the floor, followed by Vietnam. So I will start with the European Union, please. You have the floor.
Thank you very much. I speak on behalf of the EU and its member states, and first of all, we would like to thank Panama for hosting the 19th Conference of Parties and also this meeting. We are very happy to be able to meet in this beautiful country and also in great facilities, so thank you for that. We would also like to thank the Secretariat for the information, and we take note of it. With regard to the registration of operations that breed Appendix 1 animal species in captivity for commercial purposes, we would like to stress that we very much value the visits by the Secretariat in the 2 EU member states, in Spain and Germany. In our view, this visit was very useful to it provided us the opportunity to explain and demonstrate how we ensure that the requirements for captive breeding under Resolution 1016 are met. And yeah, we are ready to continue to cooperate with the Secretariat and provide additional information if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, European Union. Next on my list is Vietnam, please. Vietnam, you have the floor.
Thank you. As an observer party, Vietnam would like to thank the government of Panama for its warm welcome and hospitality. Vietnam expresses our agreements with the draft SC 75.7.1 from paragraph 27 to 33, prepared by the CITES Secretariat. Vietnam would like to take this opportunity to send our sincere gratitude to Madam Secretary Yvonne Higoro and CITES mission to Vietnam on the 4th and the 6th October this year. However, in paragraph 30, Vietnam would like to specify that The annual report does not include detailed information of the numbers and depths of the cited permits of Laos PDR, leading to the misunderstanding that Vietnam still allowed to import the Dansepara cochinensis during suspension period. Vietnam CITES authorities are continue to work with the CITES Secretariat on these important issues in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Vietnam. I'll continue to take a request from members of the Standing Committee, observer parties, and I will also open the floor to observers who wish to comment on document 7.1. So we're going to try to read the placards. We have 2 requests for the floor from observers. I do hear general agreement with the recommendations in the document, which is primarily to take note. So it's a little hard for us to read, so I'm going to start with our observer here on the right. I would ask you to introduce your organization when you speak, and then I will turn over here. I believe that's WCS, and so I will ask you to follow. So starting over here, please introduce your organization.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. I represent the International Iguana Foundation, and the foundation expresses its congratulations and appreciation to the government of Panama and its people for hosting this meeting. I'd like to draw the attention of the committee and the observer parties to the important mention of the legality of founder stock in this document. The International Iguana Foundation believes that it is critical that CITES member states explore the legality of founder stock when considering the issuance of permits for the export of what are claimed to be captive bred animals. In CITES in the last couple of decades, there has been an increasing trend for traffickers to try to exploit the permit issuance process in CITES by sneaking founder stock into countries which they are confident will issue permits for the offspring of these trafficked animals. And I appreciate the Secretariat's efforts to highlight this issue, and I appreciate the efforts of the Standing Committee and the observer partners to take note of it. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. And I will now take the intervention from, I think it's WCS, but do confirm when you speak. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, I'm speaking on behalf of WCS, the Wildlife Conservation Society. As this is the first time we're taking the floor, we wish to join others in thanking the government of Panama for the fantastic arrangements and for their warmth. We only wish the room were as warm as the country of Panama. We agree, of course, that compliance is a key issue, and we look forward to discussing it as well during COP19. We take the floor now to address questions from the Standing Committee to the government of Bangladesh on the bird trade. Unfortunately, the Bangladesh delegation is stuck in transit and was unable to reach Panama in time to attend this Standing Committee. Just to update parties on the issue in the document, we work actively at WCS to support the government of Bangladesh to improve its CITES compliance. The Bangladesh Forest Department has shown excellent commitment to rectify the issue. After concerns raised by World Parrot Trust about irregularities last year, action was taken to stop all imports of the Appendix 1 listed Timna parrot, Psittacus erythicus timna. These first steps to take to improve the system, through which no objection certificates are issued, was also with the assistance from the CITES Secretariat, and we wish to report the situation has improved. Formal meetings were initiated in March of this year between the Bangladesh Forest Department, World Parrot Trust, and the WCS team in Bangladesh regarding problematic trade identified. The focus was particularly about suspicious trade routes and country-specific combinations, and on opportunities to address concerns to improve compliance with CITES and prevent exploitation by wildlife traders of the current permitting and inspection process. In August this year, a draft guidance documents for the process of reviewing these no-objection certificates and verifying trade in birds, CITES-listed birds, to ensure transparency and accountability was discussed. WCS has hosted and provided capacity buildings trainings on CITES across the country and will ensure that this issue is included in upcoming trainings. We welcome further support from parties and the Secretariat to ensure that this issue continues to be addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, WCS. And I do hope our colleagues from Bangladesh will be able to arrive shortly. I will continue to seek any comments from the floor before concluding this item. Okay, so seeing no requests for the floor, I suggest that the committee firstly takes note of the additional updates provided by Peru, the European Union, and Vietnam regarding some of the issues identified in the document. I believe the committee will then take note of document 7.1. The committee would invite the Secretariat to continue to keep a close communication and cooperation with the parties mentioned, including asking the Secretariat to investigate further the issue regarding the trade in shark specimens. We do invite the Secretariat to present its updated findings and recommendations to SC 77. And I think the committee also would take note of the comment from the North American region inviting the Secretariat to ensure that the scientific committees are also consulted on any science-related matters that arise during the course of an Article 13 review. So those are the conclusions, I believe, from this agenda item. And I don't see any requests for the floor, so I take it that the committee is in agreement with those conclusions. Nods are helpful, thank you. Okay, and so with that, we conclude our consideration of document 7.1. So I will now turn the committee's attention to document 7.2.1 on the expedited application of an Article 13 for West African rosewoods. And I will invite the Secretariat to please introduce document 7.2.1. Secretariat, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Ce document numéro 7.2.1, c'est un bon exemple de la coopération et consultation avec les comités scientifiques concernés, les comités des plantes, et tous les acteurs qui sont impliqués dans ce gros dossier. Nous reconnaissons la présence ici du ministre du Mali et aussi peut-être le ministre de Sierra Leone. Merci de faire l'effort de vous déplacer à Panama pour discuter cet agenda item. Lors de sa 74e session, le comité permanent a demandé au secrétariat d'ouvrir une procédure accélérée du respect de la Convention pour l'espèce Pterocarpus erinaceus pour tous les États de l'aire de répartition, compte tenu des circonstances exceptionnelles créées par un commerce généralisé et documenté en violation des dispositions de la Convention. En mars 2022, le secrétariat a publié une notification invitant les 16 États de l'aire de répartition de cette espèce à justifier par écrit au secrétariat le fait que la procédure accélérée de respect de la Convention prévue à l'article 13 ne leur était pas applicable, ceci en soumettant leur avis de commerce non préjudiciable et leur avis d'acquisition légale ou en demandant au secrétariat de publier un quota d'exportation zéro volontaire pour les transactions commerciales de spécimens de cette espèce. 11 États de l'aire de répartition de Pterocarpus erinaceus ont répondu à la notification dans des délais impartis. Le secrétariat, en consultation avec le président du comité permanent et du comité pour les plantes, a évalué les réponses reçues. Les résultats de ces analyses se trouvent dans le tableau inclus à l'annexe 1 du présent document. À la suite de ce processus, le secrétariat a publié la notification 2022/045 précisant qu'un quota d'exportation zéro volontaire pour les commerces de spécimens de Pterocarpus erinaceus avait été publié sur le site internet de la CITES pour les pays suivants: Bénin, Burkina Faso, Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, Niger, Sénégal et Sierra Leone. La procédure accélérée de respect de la Convention n'est pas applicable à ces parties pour la durée du quota d'exportation zéro publié par le secrétariat. Conformément à l'article 13, la procédure accélérée de respect de la Convention est dès lors applicable au Cameroun, la Gambie, la Guinée-Bissau, au Mali, à la République centrafricaine, au Tchad et au Togo, et la suspension des transactions commerciales des spécimens de Pterocarpus erinaceus en provenance de ces États est en vigueur depuis le 28 mars 2022, date de la publication de la notification partie numéro 2022-021. Cette recommandation reste en vigueur jusqu'à ce que les parties concernées 1. émettent un avis de commerce non préjudiciable scientifiquement fondé pour l'espèce au niveau national à la satisfaction du secrétariat et de la présidence du comité pour les plantes, en tenant compte de la résolution CONF 16.7 et en s'appuyant sur les résultats du processus d'étude de commerce important pour cette espèce. Et 2. Qu'elle fournisse des preuves d'acquisition légale adéquates à la satisfaction du secrétariat et de la présidence du comité permanent en tenant compte de la résolution CONF 18.7. À noter que dans le cadre de cette procédure, le Mali avait demandé l'autorisation d'exporter 163 758 mètres cubes correspondant au solde des quotas d'exportation pour les années 2020 et 2021. Le Mali avait également soumis un avis de commerce non préjudiciable, un avis d'acquisition légale, mais le secrétariat, en consultation avec le président du comité permanent et la présidence du comité pour les plantes, avait jugé qu'aucun des deux ne constituait une justification satisfaisante. En août 2022, le Sénégal a informé le secrétariat qu'il avait saisi 124 conteneurs, soit environ 2480 mètres cubes de Pterocarpus erinaceus en provenance du Mali à destination de la Chine. Suite à cette saisie, à la demande du Sénégal, le secrétariat a publié la notification partie numéro 2263 du 30 août 2022. Le secrétariat a également eu plusieurs échanges avec le Mali, le Sénégal et la Chine pour clarifier les recommandations du comité permanent. Une lettre envoyée au Mali en octobre 2022 est jointe en annexe 3 du présent document. Ce mois-ci, le Mali a envoyé plusieurs documents au secrétariat et a déclaré que les stocks basés sur les quotas 2020 et 2021 n'avaient pas pu être exportés en raison de la suspension de l'exploitation et des exportations en vigueur au niveau national en 2020, ainsi que des vérifications faites par l'administration sur ces stocks et enfin des sanctions imposées par la CEDEAO au Mali entre janvier janvier-juillet 2022. Le Mali sollicite ainsi l'autorisation du comité permanent d'exporter ses stocks basés sur les quotas de 2020 et 2021. Par ailleurs, à la demande de la Sierra Leone, le secrétariat a publié une notification qui précisait notamment que la Sierra Leone demandait une assistance technique et financière pour mener une évaluation scientifique dans le but d'émettre un avis de commerce non préjudiciable pour Pterocarpus erinaceus. La Suisse a proposé de fournir cette assistance financière. Le secrétariat a demandé par la suite des informations supplémentaires à l'organe de gestion de la Sierra Leone sur l'état actuel d'avancement de l'avis de commerce non préjudiciable afin de convenir d'une feuille de route pour son achèvement grâce au financement suisse. Par ailleurs, la Sierra Leone a demandé au secrétariat, au comité permanent et au comité pour les plantes d'examiner sa demande d'accepter tous les permis d'exportation rejetés qui ont été délivrés pour cette espèce avant la notification numéro 2022-021 qui date du 28 mars. La Sierra Leone a envoyé une lettre le 15 septembre 2022 au secrétariat demandant au comité permanent d'examiner sa demande d'exportation des envois de Pterocarpus erinaceus qui attendent d'être expédiés depuis le 6 avril 2022, voir lettre en annexe 2 du présent document. Madame la Présidente, dans ce contexte, le secrétariat recommande au comité permanent d'actualiser les recommandations adoptées à la 74e session du comité permanent et notamment 1. De demander au secrétariat de publier une notification partie pour remplacer la notification 2022-045 du 8 juin 2022. 2. Demander que tous les permis et certificats CITES pour Pterocarpus erinaceus soient vérifiés par le secrétariat avant d'être acceptés par les parties importatrices. 3. Demander au Cameroun, la Gambie, la Guinée-Bissau, au Mali, à la République centrafricaine, au Tchad et au Togo de rendre compte au comité permanent des progrès accomplis dans l'application de la recommandation 1, alinéa A et B au sujet de l'émission d'un avis de commerce non préjudiciable et d'un avis d'acquisition légale 90 jours avant sa 77e session, afin que le secrétariat puisse lui transmettre ses rapports et toutes recommandations qu'il pourrait avoir. Et finalement, 4. D'encourager les parties affectées par le commerce illégal de Pterocarpus erinaceus à poursuivre activement l'application complète des décisions relatives au soutien à la lutte contre la criminalité liée aux espèces sauvages en Afrique de l'Ouest et Afrique centrale et à l'équipe spéciale sur le commerce illégal des spécimens d'espèces d'arbres inscrites à la CITES qui seront adoptées lors de la COP 19. Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Secretariat, for your report, which is also found in Doc 7.2.1. And I'll draw the party's attention to paragraph 17, where the Secretariat provides recommendations to the Standing Committee. And in the report, the Secretariat has underscored the recommendations numbered 1, 3, 5, and 7 in the document. With the indulgence of the members of the Standing Committee, I will also see if there are range states who are implicated or named in this document who wish to provide any additional reactions or remarks prior to turning to the Standing Committee members for their views. I appreciate your indulgence, members of the Standing Committee. I'm sure we'll all benefit from hearing from some of the range states. So I see Sierra Leone. So I will first invite Sierra Leone to provide some remarks before turning to the members of the Standing Committee. Sierra Leone, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Since this is the first time of taking the floor, we would like to thank the government of Panama for hosting this meeting. Madam Chair, Secretary General of CITES, Standing Committee members, distinguished delegates, good morning. I bring you greetings from His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, Dr. Julius Maada Bio. Let me start by thanking the Secretariat and the Standing Committee for including us on the agenda to present our case. We are grateful for this. Madam Chair, on the 15th of September 2022, the government of Sierra Leone requested a special authorization of the Standing Committee through the CITES Secretariat to export consignments of Pterocarpus erinaceus that were awaiting shipment as of the 6th April 2022 within the Western area. This was due to the delay in the delivery of empty containers because the global shipping logistics had serious challenges worldwide with the supply chain, and Sierra Leone was no exception. We humbly crave the indulgence of the Standing Committee, Plans Committee, and the CITES Secretariat to reconsider our request because the consignments were legally harvested Pterocarpus erinaceus pre-notification to the parties number 2022-021. The request is only referring to the old consignment of 160,000 cubic meters. So what have we done as a government to make this request very nice for you? One, the Sierra Leone government established a stand-alone Ministry of the Environment and Climate Change to regulate all environmental issues and to also supervise all agencies and institutions dealing with the environmental issues. And the Department of Forestry and Wildlife, including others, are under my supervision as the Minister of Environment and Climate Change of Sierra Leone. Two, we have also reviewed all outdated forestry and wildlife acts. The last time the Wildlife Act was enacted was in 1972, 50 years ago, and the Forestry Act was in 1988, 34 years ago. So as a ministry, we have reviewed all those acts, and we are in the process of including all major aspects of it, including the fines, penalties, etc. Three, Sierra Leone has exhibited a genuine commitment to the compliance procedure for Pterocarpus erinaceus based on document SC74 SUM 1311 13/2022 by responding to all the different communications from the CITES Secretariat via notification to the parties. Madam Chair, the government will remain fully committed to the compliance procedure in accordance with our national legislation for harvesting, transportation, and exportation of timber, all aimed at engaging in a properly regulated and legitimate timber trade, including Pterocarpus erinaceus. Madam Chair, in 2018, the government appointed a sole timber export agent charged with the responsibility of facilitating all timber exportation from the country. This decision is yielding positive results on the trade due to its well-coordinated structure, insulating it from illegal dealings along the supply chain. We will continue to enforce measures already in place aimed at preventing the timber trade from illegality, with a particular focus on the species exported. It is important also to note that every year, the government of Sierra Leone imposes a 5-month nationwide ban on logging and transporting of timber throughout the country during the rainy season. As a country, we will continue to be committed to the reforestation of degraded forest landscapes nationwide through the ongoing government-funded national tree planting project with reference to the east, north, and northwest regions, where Pterocarpus erinaceus is predominant. The overall objective of this project is to increase our forest cover by planting 5 million assorted seedlings, including Pterocarpus species, as a priority species by 2023 and 30 million trees by 2030. This will ensure the sustainability of this globally endangered species and serve as a mitigating measure aimed at minimizing the impacts of climate change and fulfilling the commitments in the country's medium-term National Development Plan and other international obligations. Madam Chair, due to the exigency in providing the NDF and LAF for Pterocarpus erinaceus, the government, through the sole timber export agent, Leadway Trading Company, has provided funds to the CITES Scientific Authority and team to start the data collection in the field. The CITES Scientific Authority, Sierra Leone, supervised by my ministry, is leading the process and is guided by the CITES information document INF 11.3 titled CITES Scientific Authorities, checklist to assist in making non-detriment findings and Appendix 2 exports. A draft preliminary report has been produced, which will serve as a basis for the international experts when conducting the NDF and ALF review, report, and traceability of Sierra Leone. So why are we making this request? As reiterated in the several requests submitted by Sierra Leone, payments have been made to the National Revenue Authority through the government's sole timber agent before 22nd March 2022 for timber exportation. A break in the exportation of the stockpile following the huge investments made by companies is having negative impacts on the livelihoods of those involved at different stages in the timber trade. Let me also, at this point, draw your attention to the fact that the timber value chain is a source of employment and livelihood for a substantial number of the youth population. The recent social unrest in the country on the 10th of August 2022 revolved around unbearable hardships, among others, and involved youth groups who have been working at various timber depots across the western area. The government's sole timber agents also received a letter from the Solicitor for Mediterranean Shipping Company Limited for the release of 100 containers with Pterocarpus erinaceus, which have been out of business circulation for other potential customers since March 2022, pre-notification to the parties number 2022/021. In conclusion, Madam Chair, the government of Sierra Leone will continue to enforce measures already in place and devise further methods to help effectively combat the illegal trade of Pterocarpus erinaceus. We will further sanitize the business based on the outcomes of the mandated findings, that is the NDF and the LAF. Before I end, I also have my colleagues here, the ambassador, who is the advisor, is the ambassador for Sierra Leone to Switzerland, and also the head of the CITES Secretariat in Freetown, who is the director of forestry. But the ambassador will also want to throw in a word. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so very much, Honorable Minister. Thank you, Standing Committee. Thank you, Secretariat, for affording us this opportunity to present our case. We thank once again the government of Panama for the excellent preparations for this meeting. I would like to merely iterate 2 points the Minister has made to emphasize the urgency of our request. Number one, that this request is specific to the timber already harvested pre-notification 2022-021. And we have a video that shows in really rather graphic detail the conditions of these harvested trees. They are all over the place. exposed to the elements. Sierra Leone, like Panama, is a tropical country with heavy rainfalls, and a lot of investments had gone into these, and it is impacting the livelihood of many, many, many people, thousands of people. So this is really a request to get this already harvested timber to go. And if there's some time at some point, we would like to show this video, if there's any time, so that members of the Standing Committee may see how urgent our request is. Number two, we are absolutely committed to the scientific based non-detriment finding and the legal acquisition finding. And any decision beyond after that will have to be determined by the findings, the NDF finding, with respect to further use of the timber patrimony that we have and we would like to maintain. The government's commitment to the environment, certainly to the patrimony that we have inherited and which we'd like to pass on to our succeeding generations, is absolutely very high. And we thank CITES and the Standing Committee for reminding us of this great obligation. We thank you very much. As I said, we have the video, which we would like to show the Standing Committee when the time affords, but that's the pitch we'd like to make. Thank you, Secretariat, for including us in this presentation. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sierra Leone. So thank you for your comments, and in particular for drawing attention to the Standing Committee for your request to consider the request to export some previously harvested pterocarpus. So the Standing Committee will take note of your request, and I'll look forward to the Standing Committee's responses in terms of the recommendations that were in the document and the additional request. I also see Molly wishes to react. So again, I will, with the indulgence of the committee, allow Molly to speak on the issues related to the species, and then we'll turn to the committee. Molly, please, you have the floor.
Merci à tout le monde. Le gouvernement malien, par ma voix, ministre de l'Environnement et du Développement durable du Mali, présente ses salutations sincères au peuple du Panama et à son gouvernement pour les dispositions pertinentes prises pour notre accueil jusqu'à aujourd'hui. Je voudrais aussi saluer le comité permanent et le comité, le secrétariat technique pour toutes les activités entamées depuis un certain moment avec le Mali. Je voudrais rappeler que la vision stratégique de la CITES est une stratégie sur laquelle nous sommes d'accord. Nous voudrons évoluer avec eux afin de permettre à nos forêts et faunes de subsister aux conséquences néfastes, effectivement, des braconneurs et puis de tous ceux qui exploitent cette forêt. Et nous disons que le Mali a pris des dispositions importantes afin que cela soit. Et à ce niveau, nous avons déjà, à notre entame de la transition du Mali dirigée par le colonel Assimi Goïta, suspendu toute exportation pour contrôler la situation avant votre décision. Mais il s'est fait qu'à la reprise, quand le Mali a commencé cette reprise, nous avons eu des sanctions avec la CEDEAO qui ont fait que tous les stocks en instance de départ ont été bloqués et le renouvellement de la CITES n'a pu se faire conformément à cette sanction illégale et illégitime de la CEDEAO sur le Mali. Et compte tenu de ce fait, à l'expiration effectivement de ces sanctions en juillet, nous avons essayé de faire traverser un certain nombre de quantités de stocks sur le Sénégal et qui a, compte tenu du fait que le temps imparti n'était pas là, que le Sénégal les a saisis, mais nous pensons que des dispositions pertinentes ont été pour expliquer au Sénégal, mais aussi au secrétariat, toutes les dispositions qui avaient été prises à cet effet. Et nous avons eu des rencontres effectivement par visioconférence, nous avons même délégué certains de nos représentants à Genève pour discuter de la question, afin que nous puissions trouver des solutions idoines à cette question. Je ne vais pas reprendre toutes les péripéties citées par le secrétariat. Je voudrais juste vous dire que les produits exploités ne peuvent plus être un arbre pour améliorer le potentiel ligneux de l'espace. Je voudrais aussi vous dire que la quantité en stock a été conditionnée par l'exportation et donc le marché national ne peut pas supporter ce coût. Les exportateurs ont engagé des préfinancements en termes d'exploitation, de transport, de conditionnement et de manutention, aujourd'hui qui font l'objet effectivement de discussions au niveau des armateurs et de ces exportateurs pour peut-être déloger effectivement ces stocks des conteneurs existants. Le Mali a notifié son accord pour l'établissement d'un quota d'exportation zéro pour tout commerce de spécifères de procurature aéronautique et son inclusion dans la section relative aux quotas d'exportation nationaux du site web de la CITES à partir de 2022 jusqu'à satisfaction des conditions de la CITES. Et nous avons décidé qu'aucun permis d'exportation n'a été dérivé en 2022. Compte tenu de tout ce qui présente, nous sollicitons l'autorisation d'exporter les stocks existants afin d'éviter de recourir aux dispositions du paragraphe 2 de l'article 18 de la Convention pour le règlement de ce différend, à savoir si le différend n'est pas résolu par voie de négociation, les parties peuvent d'un commun accord soumettre le différend à l'arbitrage, notamment à celui de la Cour permanente d'arbitrage de la Haye, et les parties ayant soumis les différends seront liés pour la décision arbitrale. Nous ne voudrons pas arriver à ce niveau et nous savons aujourd'hui que, effectivement, entre les exploitants et certains armateurs, de profondes crises quand même sont relevées. Mais je voudrais relever le fait aussi qu'à ce niveau, les entreprises impactées emploient aujourd'hui plus de 2000 employés qui ont leurs répercussions au niveau de leurs familles respectives. Nous craignons effectivement des émeutes autour de cette question. Nous souhaiterons vraiment une résolution à cette préoccupation-là. Et je pense que, compte tenu de ces questions, les doléances suivantes quand même sont demandées. Nous demandons à ce que les exportateurs disposent des documents légaux, que les cargaisons de bois provenant du stock régulièrement constitué depuis 2020 soient autorisées dans les meilleurs délais, mais aussi que les exportateurs sont victimes de coûts supplémentaires occasionnés par les saisies de produits de cargaison de bois, notamment de frais de location de véhicules et de conteneurs et des frais de stationnement. Nous sollicitons la libération de ces cargaisons de bois saisies afin d'éviter de recourir, comme le premier cas, aux dispositions du paragraphe 2 de l'article 18. Je souhaiterais quand même passer la parole à mon service technique afin qu'il puisse donner d'autres précisions sur cette question-là, monsieur.
Je vous remercie. À la suite de monsieur le ministre, on ne va pas revenir sur tout ce qui a été déjà détaillé. C'est pour justifier effectivement que les bois objets de saisie au niveau du Sénégal ont été régulièrement exploités avant la mise en œuvre des dispositions de la notification portant suspension du commerce de ptérocarpus. Et les documents techniques, en tout cas justifiant cet état de fait, sont à notre disposition. On pourra les mettre à votre disposition au besoin. Et donc, par rapport à cette situation, la légalité de l'acquisition est établie. Et déjà, vous savez que le Mali est au niveau 2 de l'application de la texte en matière d'élaboration de textes de la Convention. Et donc, comme le ministre a dit, le Mali est un État respectueux des conventions signées et s'attelle à mettre tout en œuvre pour leur mise en œuvre. C'est ainsi que, par rapport à cette disposition, des dispositions internes avaient été prises par rapport à la suspension totale de l'exploitation et à l'adoption de certains textes rendant assez restrictive l'exploitation de ce précieux bois. Et donc, les stocks sont en conteneurs. Et donc, aujourd'hui, le stock au niveau du Sénégal est en mouvement, mais le Mali dispose d'un stock important. Donc, c'est qui couvre les 163 758 mètres cubes, dont une partie seulement est en mouvement et qui a été bloquée au niveau du Sénégal. Donc, toute cette situation, toute cette quantité a été acquise avant la mise en œuvre de la suspension et aujourd'hui sont frappés par cette disposition. Donc, nous souhaitons que le comité permanent révise sa position par rapport à la gestion de ces stocks en cours. Merci.
Thank you, Mali. I am going to now turn to members of the committee. I'm just taking a scan to make sure no other party whose range state of the species wishes to intervene. So, committee, you have before you document 7.2.1 and a number of recommendations. There is a recommendation in particular to publish a notification to maintain the suspension on commercial trade from a number of countries. So this is paragraph 1. We've also heard from Mali a desire for the committee to allow them to export, to continue the trade transaction of an export that happened, that was harvested before the original notification. You've also got the full list of recommendations and responses in Annex 2, and we note that there is a zero export quota, I believe, for Sierra Leone, but you've also heard Sierra Leone asking a similar question about exporting some previously harvested specimens. Fundamentally, we are, as a committee, requesting to be satisfied of an appropriate non-detriment finding and legal acquisition finding. This is the basis of our previous recommendations. So I would ask the Standing Committee to now reflect and to provide me with your views regarding the recommendations in Doc 7.2.1 and the comments you have heard. I see Belgium, please. Belgium, you have the floor.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. As it's the first time Belgium is taking the floor, I want to state that we speak on behalf of the EU and its 27 member states. We would also like to thank our host country, Panama, for organizing this meeting and the Conference of the Parties in their wonderful country. We thank the CITES Secretariat for the update on this document 7.2.1, and we are pleased to see that this expedited compliance procedure seems to be paying off. We appreciate the action from the 7 range states that have requested the publication of a voluntary zero export quota. We encourage the remaining range states to provide adequate non-detriment findings and legal acquisition findings, or to request for the publication of a zero export quota as well. We call upon all range states to implement as much as possible the decisions and recommendations as described by the Task Force on Illegal Trade in CITES-listed 3 species and the Wildlife Crime Enforcement Support in West and Central Africa. We think many tools and assistance is available for those range states willing to improve the situation, and these should be used maximally. We support all recommendations as mentioned in paragraph 17 of this document. With regard to the request from Mali and Sierra Leone, we thank the interventions from both countries and the additional information provided by them. We understand the difficulties mentioned, but given the abundant reports on illegal trade for this species and the fact that both countries are included in stage 2 of the review of significant trade, we feel it's not demonstrated that an adequate non-detriment finding or legal acquisition finding was in place at the moment of harvest of the timber. Therefore, as mentioned already, we support the conclusions of the CITES Secretariat. Thank you.
Thank you, Belgium, for your clear advice. I will continue to seek inputs from members of the Standing Committee. I'll also open the floor to observer parties. Sierra Leone, you wish to return? You have the floor, Sierra Leone.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a brief right of response. Yes, the NDF is not in place in Sierra Leone. It wasn't in place when these trees were harvested. But we are in the process of conducting it. And to the extent that the government provided initial funding to do the baseline survey, we are working very closely with CITES Secretariat. I have been there several times, and we are in negotiation. The government of Switzerland has offered to finance a part of the NDF as well as the legal acquisition finding. So yes, the delegate from Belgium is correct to say that the NDF had not been conducted when these trees were harvested, but we are in the process, very serious process of conducting them, and we are really committed to it. And after the NDF, whatever decision is made will be scientifically determined, and we look forward to the conclusion of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sierra Leone, and thank you for reiterating that work is well underway and your commitment to preparing the NDF. I'll continue to seek interventions from members of the Standing Committee. I also do invite observer parties who wish to react. I will note Mali. Mali, you wish to react again? Okay, please, Mali, you have the floor.
Voilà, je vous remercie. Et par rapport à cette considération du problème, le Mali dispose d'un ACPN délivré par son autorité scientifique. Mais à l'examen des documents, le secrétariat a simplement répondu que les arguments avancés par le Mali sont insuffisants sans justifier le pourquoi. Alors qu'en la matière, c'est l'autorité scientifique qui juge de l'opportunité de délivrer un ACNP. Donc l'ACNP, le Mali dispose d'ACNP pour ces stocks aujourd'hui réclamés et demandés pour être mis en valeur. Et donc, je profite de l'occasion pour dire que par rapport à cette application de la législation, par rapport à cette disposition de la Convention, le Mali s'efforce de respecter les engagements comme on l'a dit. Et si vous remarquez, nous volons de nos propres ailes pour essayer de respecter ces dispositions. Le Mali, jusqu'ici, n'a bénéficié d'aucune formation spécifique en la matière. Et donc, il dispose d'une loi de transposition de la Convention qui crée, qui nomme les organes. Donc, la direction nationale est l'autorité, l'organe de gestion et l'IR l'autorité scientifique. Et donc, par rapport à la gestion de ces ressources, ces dispositions sont respectées. Et donc, par rapport à cet état de fait, nous voudrions quand même demander au secrétariat d'être au moins clément, parce que nous sommes quand même parvenus à élaborer des ACNP, bien que difficiles, et la procédure étant assez complexe. Nous sommes toujours disposés à être à l'école des autres pour mieux faire. Et donc aujourd'hui, la situation que nous vivons, en tout cas, nous avons communiqué au secrétariat et à la Chine qui, en tout cas, reçoit ces espèces, cet ACPN dont nous disposons. Et si ce n'est pas cette disposition qui suspend carrément, on n'avait pas été alerté sur le fait. Et donc c'est dans ce cadre que pour les produits de 2022, l'ACPN aussi l'ACNP a été élaboré par notre autorité scientifique, mais effectivement on n'avait pas émis, on n'a émis aucun permis CITES depuis le 1er octobre 2021 plutôt. Donc nous demandons l'indulgence quand même du comité permanent pour l'examen de la situation par rapport aux ACNP. Donc, ce n'est pas au point zéro, mais on est en train de parfaire un processus dans lequel nous sommes et qui est imposé par le respect des dispositions de la Convention. Je vous remercie.
Thank you very much, Molly, for your additional interventions. Thank you for pointing out the work you have already done on your non-detriment finding. And I believe in the document, the Secretariat did offer to consult and confer to provide any further explanations. So I'll invite you and the Secretariat to discuss. And thank you also for pointing out the importance of capacity building and training, which is one of the recommendations put to this committee, and I think one that that we all understand is pretty critical for the effective implementation of this convention. So again, I'm going to be seeking some guidance from members of the Standing Committee. I also invite observer parties to make interventions. Based on what I've heard so far, while we appreciate the comments from our colleagues from Mali and Sierra Leone, based on the document I've heard so far and in my usual assumption that silence means agreement with the document's recommendation, it is my sense that the Standing Committee is comfortable with the recommendations in paragraph 17 as they are described in document 7.2.1 and does not have additional recommendations to make. I have the floor open for members of the Standing Committee for your reactions. I also invite parties. And I will take one or two interventions from observers who might wish to also react.
Great.
Okay, so I see no further requests for the floor. So based on this discussion, with my thanks to all the interveners, it is my conclusion that the Standing Committee agrees with the recommendations found in paragraph 17 of document 7.2.1, notably to instruct the Secretariat to publish a replacement notification, to note the process of review of significant trade, to request CITES permits and certificates be verified, to invite parties to exercise due diligence, to request reports, to request the Secretariat undertake capacity building and training, and to encourage parties affected by illegal trade to actively pursue the full implementation of the decision. So this is the conclusion that I have come to based on the interventions from members of the Standing Committee. Sierra Leone, I see you wish to take the floor again. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Our request is actually very straightforward. That is just to allow the old consignment, and this is due to a lot of factors. One, there were no containers. But I want to appeal to the Standing Committee to look at what is happening in the country. We have violence. We have a video we can share with you, as my colleague was saying. Youths are out of job. This was their usual livelihood, loading the trucks and earning money for their families. And the August 10th pandemonium that took place in the country is directly related to the youths not being engaged. So I believe we still continue to appeal because the trees are already fallen. They have been harvested. They are there. Okay, the conditions are not right for them. Even if we don't export them, that is like double jeopardy because we lose them and we don't get income for them and the youths don't get employment and people will continue to suffer. So our position is actually to appeal to the Standing Committee to look at it again critically, because Sierra Leone as a country, we have made very significant strides towards this. I mentioned the establishment of a new stand-alone Ministry of the Environment to supervise forestry, wildlife, and all the other institutions dealing with environmental issues. I also mentioned that for compliance, the old Wildlife Act was of 1972. It's being reviewed, and it's being amended in the Parliament. That law was 50 years old. What that tells you is that if somebody goes to a protected area or cuts down a pterocarpus species, the fine was minimal, abysmally low. Maybe 1 euro, that is 0.1 cent or 1 cent as far as the US dollar is concerned. We have changed that. We have increased the fines commensurate to the crime. That will increase compliance. That Wildlife Act was 1972. The Forestry Act was 1988. 34 years ago, it has never been changed. Through my leadership with my team, within a very short period of time, we have taken all those bills, in fact 6 bills, including the Environment Protection Agency, the National Protected Area Authority, Meteorological Agency, Nuclear Safety and Radiation, plus the Forestry and Wildlife. Within a short period of time, I took all those bills to Cabinet for approval, and I have taken all of them to Parliament for enactment. So you see a genuine commitment for us. And lastly, let me conclude here. We have engaged the Secretariat, as my colleague was saying, and the Secretariat has promised to provide us with technical expertise in doing the NDF and the LAF. We didn't sit down there. The government provided funds so that we start the baseline study, so that when they come, they go to the field, they will be able to see the storms, they will be able to see that we practice sustainable management of the pterocarpus species. And finally, we are also planting trees. I mentioned about the 5 million trees by 2023, that is end of next year. We've already done about 2.8 million, including some pterocarpus species. And by 2030, we want to plant 30 million trees, all from government funds. That is commitment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I do recognize that we have a very long agenda ahead of us. So, sorry, I interpreted you had concluded. Is that correct? Okay. Thank you so much for your intervention, Sierra Leone, and thank you again for reminding us that you had a video. I do not have time to play a video during our deliberations. I apologize for that. I will consult with the Secretariat to see if there's an opportunity to display your video over the lunch break so that the Standing Committee can benefit from your hard work there. However, for this particular decision at this time, it seems to me that the Standing Committee would like to remain with the recommendations found in paragraph 17 of document 7.2.1. And so I think my conclusion is still that the Standing Committee agrees with the recommendations in paragraph 17, paragraphs 1 through 7. I do hope that there'll be an opportunity for your video to be shared for those who have the opportunity to watch it over the lunch break. And of course, there are multiple methods for bringing matters to the attention of the Standing Committee. So we can advance in that way. So I would very much like to conclude this item. I am very cognizant that we only have one day and we still have quite a number of issues to get before us. So I will take a very short and final intervention from Mali, and then I'm going to conclude this item. Mali, please, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup. Je ne voudrais pas aussi insister sur les préoccupations majeures que nous avons au niveau du pays aujourd'hui. Je voudrais quand même que des discussions qui ont eu lieu avec le secrétariat jusqu'à aujourd'hui quand même nous ont quand même permis d'avancer sur ce dossier. Et je souhaiterais quand même que la Convention prenne vraiment une part active afin que des décisions pertinentes puissent être prises au niveau de cette rencontre-là. Si nous sommes là aujourd'hui jusqu'à ce niveau, je pense que ce niveau n'a jamais été présent au niveau d'une réunion de la Convention. Le ministre de l'Environnement en personne se déplaçait sur cette question. Nous pensons que la question dépasse l'entendement même des autorités. Nous sommes dans un système où nous devrons quand même s'entraider afin d'éviter les problèmes au niveau de nos usines, des problèmes au niveau de l'emploi des jeunes. Mais si cette question devrait être encore revue pour une durée assez longue encore, honnêtement, je pense que le Mali ne pourra pas supporter les événements qui peuvent se dérouler à la suite de cette rencontre-là. Et je souhaiterais inviter vraiment tous les comités ainsi que le secrétariat à regarder de très près cette discussion afin que nous puissions aboutir à l'évacuation dans le meilleur délai des 163 500 mètres cubes déjà disposés et qui ne sont pas impactés par effectivement votre dernière décision. Donc je tiens à cette recommandation. Je pense que l'exercice que nous sommes en train de faire, c'est du donner et du recevoir. Je pense qu'à un certain niveau, les États doivent être écoutés. Nous sommes un pays sahélien, c'est vrai, mais un pays quand même respectueux de la Convention. Si nous sommes rentrés dans cette Convention, c'est afin de pouvoir la gérer et dans les meilleures dispositions possibles pour nos populations, mais aussi pour la protection de la forêt et de la faune. Et je souhaiterais vraiment qu'on regarde cet état de fait, peut-être par une discussion bilatérale très prochainement au niveau de cette réunion, pour peut-être trouver la solution idoine dans les meilleurs délais. Que des propositions suivantes devraient être prises pour voir un peu l'état de déroulement de toutes ces questions dans les meilleurs délais. Je vous remercie.
C'est ça. Dans le même ordre, vraiment, nous voudrions assurer cette auguste assemblée que la disponibilité du produit est au Mali, parce que de 1935 jusqu'en 2010, cette espèce était intégralement protégée, c'est-à-dire soustraite de toute forme d'exploitation. C'est vu l'abondance que l'évolution des textes, avec l'évolution des textes, en 2010, il a été classé comme une essence partiellement protégée, c'est-à-dire autorisée à l'exploitation. Et donc, c'est dans ce cadre que l'idée de plus-value est arrivée et l'idée d'exportation est encore venue. Et le Mali a toujours documenté l'exportation de ce bois. Depuis qu'il n'était pas, l'espèce n'était pas inscrite à l'annexe 2, les certificats d'origine d'exportation ont été régulièrement délivrés par l'organe de gestion. Lorsque, en 2016, il a été inscrit à l'annexe 2, ces dispositions ont été encore appliquées jusqu'à nos jours. Donc aujourd'hui, si la Sierra Leone a des images à projeter, donc il n'y a aucun doute que le potentiel existe à notre niveau et on peut vous assurer de cet état de fait. Et l'évolution des textes de gestion de l'espèce le prouve à suffisance. Et ces documents sont aussi disponibles pour votre compréhension dans la mesure du possible. Merci.
Thank you very much, Mali, and thank you, Sierra Leone. I think we can take note of the desire of both Mali and Sierra Leone to have an expedited consideration of their requests in future. And again, I conclude that the Standing Committee agrees with the recommendations found in paragraph 17, paragraphs 1 through 7. And with that, I will conclude our consideration of document 7.2.1, and I will turn our attention to the next document, 7.2.2, and I will ask the Secretariat to please present this document.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning. I'm speaking to document SC 75, numbers 7.2.2 on the implementation of Article 13 in Lao People's Democratic Republic, Lao PDR. You will recall that the Standing Committee discussed the compliance matters related to Lao PDR at its meeting in Lyon in March earlier this year. At the meeting, the committee adopted a revised set of recommendations and agreed to review progress at its 77th meeting next year. The committee also invited the Secretariat to provide an update at the present meeting. So the present document is based on a report that Lao PDR sent to the Secretariat in September. In addition, the Secretary General undertook a mission to Lao PDR in early October to review progress on the implementation and to engage with senior officials and policymakers in the country. As set out in the documents, she met with the Minister of Agriculture and Forestry, who's the head of in which the CITES Management Authority is based. In terms of implementation, there are some areas where Lao PDR is making good progress, in particular on the NDF for Dalbergia. And there are areas where the implementation must be accelerated. This is in particular with regard to the conversion of wildlife farms and with regard to legislation for the implementation of the convention. In conclusion, I would like to draw your attention to the recommendations set out in paragraph 34 to 37 of the document. The committee is invited to take note of the document, to reiterate its recommendations made at SC 74, to urge Lao PDR to finish the decree on the implementation of the convention that has been underway for a couple of years now. Maybe we can give the floor to Lao PDR to see if there's any news in this regard. And finally, to invite Lao PDR to provide a progress report by the end of July 2023 for the Secretariat to report to the next meeting of the Standing Committee to take place in November next year. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Secretariat, for your report, noting that the Standing Committee has already agreed to review progress at its 77th meeting more thoroughly. If the Standing Committee again will agree, I will first see if Lao PDR is present and wishes to add anything to the report provided by the Secretariat.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you very much, CITES Secretariat, for giving me a floor. Dear Madam Chair and all delegates, very good morning. Since this is the first time to take the floor on behalf of the Lao government, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Panama for excellence organizing and hosting this important conference, and also I would like to express my delegation profound gratitude and appreciation to the CITES Secretariat for the generous hospitality accorded to us and for the excellent arrangement for the document 7.2.2. The document provides a comprehensive summaries and observation by the CITES Secretariat on the progress we have reported and earnestly continuing to implement the Article 13 recommendations, particularly those updated and agreed at the last 74th meetings of the Standing Committee last March this year. We are also grateful for the continued technical support provided, including the recent visit to the country by the CITES Secretary General and the team, and also the other contribution from government partners and non-government organizations in Lao PDR in their tireless effort in assisting us to reach CITES compliance. In addition to the report provided by the Secretariat to the Standing Committee, we also would like to, we wish to provide the following progress since the visits of the CITES Secretary General and the team in the Lao PDR in last October this year. I would like to share with you that apart from the related legislations that have been approved and endorsed by the government, the Prime Minister decrees on CITES implementations had also been endorsed. Having these new decrees make us every confidence that we from different sector and government partners, we bring positive change and promote the wish of the governments of Lao Vida achieving compliance with our obligation under the CITES. Since 31st October this year, we have received the results of the tiger DNA analysis of the collected tissue samples in tiger captive facility in Lao Vida from the tiger site audit implemented from 2019-2020. We are very grateful to the Malaysian government and their officers at the National Wildlife Forensics Laboratories for the tremendous assistance and support in the analysis of the tiger sample collected. We are now in the process of interpreting the results, and the result will be helpfully provide information to the management of captive facilities for tiger in the Lao Vida and enforcement in relation to the illegalities. We would also like to thank all the relevant partners and CITES party members for assisting and contributing to our substantial achievement. The government of the Lao Vida is deeply committed to continue to welcome the recommendations made by the CITES Secretariat to the Standing Committee, and that we will employ more labor and effort to implement these recommendations in order to promote visits of the Lao government achieving compliance with our obligation under the CITES. And we will report these magnificent outcomes in the 77th Standing Committee meeting in next year. Last but not least, allow me to sincerely thank to the CITES Secretariat for always continuing support and assistance. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lao PDR. So I will now turn to members of the Standing Committee for any reactions. Just a reminder, we are invited to take note of the report, and we can additionally note the additional information from Lao PDR, reiterate recommendations, urge Lao to finalize, and then again, we will consider the recommendation to suspend trade at the 77th meeting as we had previously agreed. So I will see if there's any comments from members of the Standing Committee. I will start with Ireland, please.
As it's the first time Ireland is taking the floor, I want to clarify that we speak on behalf of the EU and its member states. We would like to thank Panama for hosting the Standing Committee, the Conference of the Parties, and for their warm welcome. We would like to thank the Secretariat for preparing this document and for the mission to Lao PDR by the Secretary General in October 2022. We are pleased to read the submitted progress report by Lao PDR, the progress made with regard to the non-detriment findings for Dalbergia species, and its subsequent request to the Secretariat to publish a zero export quota for 2022 and 2023 as a precautionary measure. We regard these efforts as a commitment of Lao PDR to the Convention. Nevertheless, we are concerned to read about the ongoing delays in implementing key recommendations of the Standing Committee, notably the lack of adopting appropriate national legislation for the implementation of the Convention. Therefore, we support all recommendations of the Secretariat and strongly urge Lao PDR to implement them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ireland. I'll continue to see if there's interventions from members of the Standing Committee, and I'll also open the floor to observer parties. Thailand? Thailand, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the first time that Thailand is taking the floor, so Thailand would like to express our gratitude to the Panama government for the warm welcome and organizing the excellence for this accessibility beauty. And also, we would like to thank for the CITES Secretariat for updating this document, SC75, document 7.2.2. Thailand has seen the further progress of the Lao PR in implementing of the recommendations agreed at the SC74 regarding the main aspects, such as the management of export of Dalbergia species, the national legislation of CITES, law enforcement, and also tiger captive breeding facilities. Regarding the law enforcement matters, Thailand would like to support the Lao PDR to conduct the activities related to the application of the Article 13 on the international measures. Thailand has discussed with Lao PDR to support organizing the bilateral meeting on strengthening trans-boundary collaboration on tackle illegal wildlife trade and related issues between the two countries in early next year. And also, Thailand can share our experience and knowledge on improving law and regulation on wildlife management and trade. CITES Thailand has enacted the new effective laws on wildlife preservation and protection in 2019. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Thailand, for your intervention and for indicating your desire to support Lao and begin some bilateral meetings for cooperation, transporter cooperation. I will continue to see if there are any requests from the floor from parties and, as of course, standing committee members. Indonesia, please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Indonesia would like to thank the Secretariat for the report and appreciate Lao for the progress on the CITES implementation. We recommend Secretariat to continue assist Lao for preparing the report to be submitted for the coming SC77 meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Indonesia. Pardon me. I will continue to take interventions from members of the Standing Committee. I also invite observer parties, and I will see if there are one or two observers who wish to intervene. So I will take a last intervention from the observer in the back. I think I'm hearing EIA, but please do introduce yourself prior to beginning your intervention.
Thank you, Chair. Indeed, this is the Environmental Investigation Agency. Since this is the first time we are taking the floor, I would like to thank the Government of Panama for hosting this conference in such a beautiful part of the world. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank you for your excellent stewardship of the Standing Committee. I'm making this intervention on behalf of Born Free, EIA, 4Paws International, and SSN. We recommend that the Standing Committee specifically ask Lao PDR to report to SC77 on enforcement measures taken against the criminal enterprises that control the 5 tiger farms in Laos, where the number of tigers has increased from 344 at the time of the 2019 tiger farm audit to 451 as reported to this meeting. This includes the tiger and bear farm at the Golden Triangle Special Economic Zone, which is 80% owned and controlled by the King's Romans Group, a US Treasury Department designated organized crime group involved in drug, human, and wildlife trafficking. Likewise, the company that owns one tiger farm in Laos, whose co-owner was jailed in 2020 for 6 years in Vietnam for trafficking tiger cubs from Laos to Vietnam. Also, the company that is associated with 2 tiger farms and is part of the Moazu Chroma ivory trafficking network, Chroma having recently been convicted in the US. And finally, the other tiger farm from which 300 tigers disappeared unaccounted for between 2016 and 2017. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, EIA. So, seeing no further requests for the floor, it's my conclusion that the Standing Committee agrees with the recommendations found in document 7.2.2. So the Standing Committee takes note of the progress report and notes the additional information provided by Laos orally. The Standing Committee reiterates the recommendations made at its 74th meeting and urges Lao PDR to finalize and issue the decree in line with the comments made by the Secretariat. The Standing Committee also reiterates that it will consider the recommendation to suspend trade at its 77th meeting if progress on implementation is considered insufficient. And finally, the Standing Committee recommends that Lao PDR submit a report by 31 July 2023 on its progress on implementation of the recommendations in order for it to be considered at the 77th meeting of the Standing Committee. With those conclusions, we conclude our consideration of document 7.2.2. And I'll turn our attention then to document 7.2.3, the application of Article 13 in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. I will ask the Secretariat to please present this document.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Lors de sa 74e session, le comité permanent a formulé une série de recommandations à l'égard de la RDC dans le cadre de l'article 13 de la Convention. Ces recommandations ont été prises sur la base d'un rapport qui avait été soumis par la RDC en mars 2021, ainsi que la déclaration orale de la RDC, alors représentée par la République du Congo, lors de la 74e session du comité permanent. La RDC avait soumis un rapport actualisé quelques jours avant la session, mais le secrétariat n'avait pas été en mesure de l'analyser et d'élaborer de nouvelles recommandations pour examen à la session du comité permanent. Le comité permanent a donc invité le secrétariat à examiner les nouvelles informations et à soumettre toutes recommandations pertinentes révisées. Suite à l'examen de ce rapport, le secrétariat note plusieurs choses. Premièrement, concernant le rapatriement d'un stock de pangolins saisi en 2021 de la République du Congo vers la RDC, les deux parties ont fourni des informations au secrétariat. Il en ressort que ce rapatriement a été effectué sous la responsabilité des bureaux nationaux Interpol des deux pays et a été autorisé par le tribunal de grande instance de Brazzaville. 2 personnes ont été condamnées dans le cadre de cette affaire. Les spécimens seraient actuellement entreposés à la direction du casier judiciaire de la police nationale congolaise, la RDC, qui a par ailleurs indiqué que ces spécimens seraient brûlés à l'occasion d'une cérémonie spéciale. Le secrétariat invite la RDC à fournir une mise à jour de ces informations lors de la présente session. Dans ce contexte, le secrétariat recommande de revenir sur les recommandations prises par le comité permanent au regard du commerce des stocks de pangolins, en maintenant le paragraphe qui recommande aux parties de ne pas autoriser le commerce des spécimens provenant des stocks de manis SPP détenus en RDC et en supprimant le paragraphe qui demandait aux organes de gestion de la RDC et de la République du Congo de fournir des informations concernant le rapatriement des cailles des pangolins, sachant que ces derniers ont répondu. En matière de lutte contre le commerce illégal des espèces sauvages, le secrétariat note des efforts importants entrepris par la RDC, en particulier des pangolins et des éléphants. Face à l'ampleur de ce trafic et de récentes saisies opérées, la multiplication des initiatives telles que les analyses de données pour l'identification des groupes criminels et les opérations de démantèlement de ces réseaux reste essentielle. Le secrétariat recommande de supprimer la recommandation prise par le comité permanent lors de sa 74e session qui demandait à la RDC d'intensifier ses efforts en vue de réaliser des analyses des données disponibles pour repérer les groupes criminels et de réunir des équipes pluridisciplinaires pour mener des enquêtes et des opérations. Celle-ci est couverte de manière plus spécifique par le processus relatif au plan d'action nationaux pour l'Ivoire et le soutien à la lutte contre la criminalité liée aux espèces sauvages en Afrique de l'Ouest et Afrique centrale. En revanche, le secrétariat note qu'aucune mesure significative de renforcement des capacités de l'autorité scientifique ou concernant la gestion du commerce de Psittacus erythacus n'ont été rapportées dans le dernier rapport. De ce fait, le secrétariat recommande de maintenir les recommandations qui ont été prises lors de la 74e session du comité permanent. Le secrétariat tient à féliciter les autorités de la RDC pour les efforts déployés surtout au regard de la lutte contre le commerce illégal et tient à remercier les parties, partenaires et donateurs pour leur appui technique et financier à cet égard. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Secretariat. As with the previous, I was going to see if the Democratic Republic of the Congo was present and wished to react prior, with the indulgence of the Standing Committee, of course. But I don't believe they are present. So I will turn to members of the Standing Committee. You've heard the report of the Secretariat, and based on that report, the Standing Committee is invited to update and replace the recommendations adopted at the 74th meeting with those found in paragraph 31 of document 7.2.3 Rev 1. So I will turn first to members of the Standing Committee for any reactions. I will take the intervention from Belgium, please. Belgium, you have the floor.
Thank you. We congratulate the Democratic Republic of the Congo for their work and applaud the significant progress made. Nevertheless, it remains clear that action still remains very much necessary given the ongoing high levels of illegal trade. We support the adoption of the recommendations as suggested by the CITES Secretariat, but we also request the re-inclusion of the recommendation on illegal trade mentioned in paragraph 23. As it's not yet clear what decision will be taken on the NIA process, nor on COP document 36.1, and because this recommendation is a global one, not only limited to ivory, we suggest to maintain it, be it with a slightly different wording, taking into account the work already done. So we suggest in the beginning to replace the word intensify by continue. So it would read, the DRC shall continue its efforts to conduct analysis of available information to map organized crime groups active in the country and convene multidisciplinary investigative teams involving all relevant authorities to work in close collaboration with local authorities in key identified areas and initiate intelligence-driven operations and investigations with a particular focus on pangolins and ivory. We would like to add one sentence saying that these actions should become incorporated in the work of DRC. The intention would be that this becomes structural and formalized work, not only depending on the assistance of UNODC. Thank you.
Thank you, Belgium. And to ensure that I have captured and that all the committee members have captured your request, so in paragraphs 23 through 27 of the document, the Secretariat reports on the measures regarding illegal trade and makes a recommendation to delete the previous recommendation from the Standing Committee. I understand from Belgium that you wish to retain the recommendation, which shall read, DRC shall continue its efforts instead of intensify. However, it sounded as if you also wish to add to that recommendation, and if that is the case, could you please read the addition you wish to make slowly? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, and apologies for being too fast. We suggest to add one sentence at the very end to read, these actions should become incorporated in the work of DRC. And the rationale for that is that currently it's very much depending on the assistance of UNODC, whereas this should become like a structuralized, formal part of the work of DRC. Thank you.
So the additional sentence would read, at the end after ivory, these actions should become incorporated in the work of the DRC. Full stop. Okay, I will continue to take interventions from members of the Standing Committee on the recommendations found in paragraph 31 and the additional comments made by Belgium. I will also seek any interventions from observer parties who wish to react. I see a request from the United States. The United States, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The United States would also like to thank Panama for hosting us during these meetings for the next 2 weeks. The United States supports the comments that were made by Belgium, and we would like to add or to amend and propose the language of incorporating into the national measures of the DRC to the end of that sentence.
Thank you, United States, and thank you. And so the addition from Belgium, the United States is supporting replacing work with national measures. I think that's to provide a bit more precision. And I see Belgium nodding on that. I see actually a few heads nodding, so that's helpful. I will continue to seek any further interventions on the recommendations, including the comments made by Belgium and the United States from members of the committee. I will also invite observer parties. And I will take silence to mean agreement with the recommendations, including the amendments provided by Belgium with the tweak from the United States. I'll also open the floor now for any observers who wish to react before concluding this item. In the far right corner, I would invite my friend to please introduce yourself, and then you may take the floor as an observer, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's Humane Society International. And first of all, as it is our first time taking the floor, I would like to, as others have, express our thanks to Panama for hosting this meeting in this magnificent facility. It's a pleasure to be here. Just on a personal note, I'd also say that it's not only very nice to be back into the CITES fold after missing the last COP, but to be in time to hear the chairman's concluding remarks, which I await with great interest. Anyway, I am making this intervention on behalf of HSI, the Pan-African Sanctuary Alliance, Pro-Wildlife, Species Survival Network, and the Wildlife Conservation Society. We welcome this document and we're encouraged by the progress made by the DRC and encourage the country to continue its efforts to combat wildlife crime. However, noting the interventions of Belgium and the United States, we also do not agree with the Secretariat's recommendation in paragraph 27 to delete the recommendation adopted by the Standing Committee at its 74th meeting, set out in paragraph 23, that the DRC shall intensify efforts to conduct analyses of available information to map organized crime groups active in the country. We feel not only that it is important to maintain this recommendation, but it should be expanded to focus on gray parrots and protected primate species, as well as on pangolins and ivory. We'd suggest adding that. This recommendation should be seen as an encouragement to DRC to continue its progress and on other parties to support the DRC's efforts as a matter of priority. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Humane Society. So I do not see any further requests for the floor. So it's my understanding, based on the discussion that we've had, that the Standing Committee agrees with the recommendations found in paragraph 31. So these are subparagraphs A, B, C, D, and E. And the Standing Committee further agrees to retain the recommendation regarding illegal trade. So this was recommendation E SC 74, and it is found in paragraph 23 of the current document. In retaining this recommendation, the Standing Committee agrees to edit the recommendation to replace the word intensify with continue its. And the Standing Committee also agrees to add an additional sentence at the end of the recommendation that reads, "These actions should become incorporated into the national measures of the DRC." So those are what I take to be the conclusions of the Standing Committee regarding document 7.2.3. And with that, I will conclude the consideration of document 7.2.3 and turn our attention to agenda item 7.2.4. And I believe I can start with the Standing Committee, with the Secretariat on that one. I will always start with the Standing Committee. Secretariat, please introduce this item.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Lors de sa 74e session, le comité permanent a repris une série de recommandations à l'égard de la Guinée dans le cadre de l'article 13 de la Convention concernant l'exportation de spécimens pré-convention de Thécaropus erinaceus, la législation nationale, la gestion et la délivrance de permis et certificats CITES et le respect de la Convention et la lutte contre la fraude. À cet égard, le comité permanent a demandé à la Guinée de soumettre un rapport au secrétariat sur l'application de ces recommandations avant la 77e session. C'est pourquoi aucun rapport écrit n'est soumis à la présente session. Néanmoins, plusieurs avancées ont été réalisées par la Guinée et ce sont ces avancées que le secrétariat souhaite présenter aujourd'hui à l'oral. Premièrement, le secrétariat et la Guinée ont signé un accord dans le cadre du programme d'aide au respect de la Convention, le CAP, et nous espérons démarrer la mise en œuvre de ces activités tout de suite après la conférence des parties. Il y a un petit problème concernant le versement de la première tranche du financement, mais le secrétariat met tout en œuvre pour pallier ce problème. Concernant l'exportation des spécimens pré-convention de Thécaropus erinaceus, le comité permanent avait décidé de permettre à titre exceptionnel l'exportation du stock de pré-convention pour un volume maximum de 14 mètres cubes. En raison du retard occasionné par la crise du Covid-19 et du coup d'État survenu en septembre 2021 en Guinée, le comité permanent, lors de sa dernière session, a prorogé ce délai et a autorisé la Guinée à exporter le stock avant le 13 novembre 2022, donc aujourd'hui. Depuis la dernière session du comité permanent, le secrétariat a été en contact très régulier avec la Guinée au sujet de l'exportation de ce stock. À ce titre, la Guinée a soumis une nouvelle liste de membres de la commission de suivi pour l'exportation du stock en mai 2022. Plusieurs réunions se sont également tenues à la demande des autorités de Guinée avec des compagnies de transport choisies pour cette exportation. Celles-ci étaient en effet réticentes à l'exportation en raison de la recommandation de suspension des transactions commerciales pour le Thécaropus erinaceus prise dans le cadre de la procédure accélérée de l'application de l'article 13 en ce qui concerne le bois de rose de l'Afrique de l'Ouest, qu'on a discuté tout à l'heure d'ailleurs. D'après les dernières informations reçues, 95 containers, ce qui représente environ 1600 mètres cubes, ont été chargés, contrôlés et scellés et sont arrivés au port de Conakry. Néanmoins, selon notre compréhension, ils n'auraient pas encore quitté la Guinée. Le secrétariat invite la Guinée à présenter à l'oral une mise à jour concernant la procédure de l'exportation du stock de bois à la présente session. Juste pour information, je crois que la Guinée n'est pas encore arrivée ici au Panama, donc Je pense que peut-être qu'il y a un autre membre du comité permanent qui pourrait prendre la parole à la place de la Guinée. Merci, Madame la Présidente. Excusez-moi, Madame la Présidente, j'ai oublié de juste annoncer que la Guinée, en fait, a soumis un rapport écrit hier au secrétariat que nous avons publié ce matin en tant que document pour information au comité permanent, qu'il est disponible sur le site Internet. Merci encore.
Thank you, Secretariat, for providing an oral update. And it's unfortunate our colleagues from Guinea are not present, but I understand that they have asked one of the representatives of the Standing Committee to provide some information. And so I believe Morocco. Please, Morocco, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Donc, le Royaume de Maroc prenant la parole pour la première fois, nous souhaiterions remercier le gouvernement du Panama pour son excellente organisation de cette conférence. Et donc, j'interviens en ma qualité de membre du comité permanent représentant pour la région Afrique à la demande de la délégation guinéenne qui a eu des difficultés donc, pour se rendre aujourd'hui pour présenter son rapport. Le rapport a été soumis hier soir concernant un certain nombre de dispositions qui ont été prises par la Guinée. Concernant le point spécial du stock de bois, le rapport il dit qu'il faut préciser qu'une commission composée des agents de police et des douanes et de la gendarmerie a été mise en place. Et puis après plusieurs réunions de la commission de suivi des procédures, des opérations d'exportation du stock de bois pré-convention ont commencé le 14 septembre 2022 sur le site de Kunita, puis celui de Fassia, le samedi 17 septembre 2022 dans la préfecture de Koya. Du 14 au 1er novembre 2022, 95 conteneurs de 20 pieds ont été chargés, contrôlés et scellés pour un contenu total de 19 584 pièces de bois, équivalent à 1681,23 mètres cubes. Concernant les travaux liés à l'exportation sur le terrain, ils évoluent bien et le reste du stock de bois Pterocarpus erinaceus pré-convention sera exporté à la fin du délai butoir. Un certain nombre de conclusions et recommandations aussi ont été émises au niveau du rapport et stipulent les choses suivantes. Donc, avec les mutations sociopolitiques que le pays connaît, est en train de vivre, la lutte contre la criminalité des espèces fauniques et floristiques mérite une attention exceptionnelle. Aujourd'hui, les défis sont énormes. Parmi les activités entreprises, l'évacuation des stocks de bois pré-convention se déroule à merveille avec toutes les mesures de sécurité annoncées dans la stratégie de sauvegarde. Les nouvelles autorités ont montré leur soutien pour la protection de nos ressources naturelles. Le président de la République s'est personnellement impliqué dans la mise en œuvre de la campagne de reboisement 2022. Les structures institutionnelles plus jeunes sont mises aussi en place. Cependant, des difficultés sont encore présentes au cours de la lutte contre la criminalité faunique et floristique. Il est important de voir ce qu'il y a lieu de faire pour escompter plus les résultats pour lutter efficacement contre la criminalité faunique et floristique. C'est pourquoi nous formulons les recommandations suivantes. La levée de la sanction sur la Guinée infligée depuis mars 2013 lors de la réunion du comité permanent. Accélérer la mise à disposition du financement du parc. Implémenter le programme de renforcement des capacités pour la mise en œuvre du cadre d'indicateurs du consortium international de lutte contre la criminalité liée aux espèces. Ce cadre constituera un précieux outil pour évaluer les efforts fournis en matière de lutte contre la criminalité faunique et floristique. Organiser des ateliers de formation en faveur de nouveaux responsables en charge de la gestion des ressources forestières et fauniques, Ces nouveaux gestionnaires doivent bénéficier de la formation appropriée en fonction du profil pour plus d'efficacité sur le terrain. Merci Madame la Présidente de me donner l'occasion de parler au nom de la Guinée et je vous remercie aussi les membres du comité permanent.
Thank you, Morocco, for presenting the views of Guinea in their absence. And I do take note of the requests made by Guinea via the report you provided. And I also note that a written report has been provided yesterday and is available as an information document. It's my suggestion that the Standing Committee take note of the report from the Secretariat and additionally take note of the additional information provided by Guinea as read by our colleague from Morocco. So that would be my suggestion for this item, and I will turn to see if there are any reactions from members of the Standing Committee. And I will also open the floor to observer parties. And I will seek as well any interventions from observers. Okay, seeing no requests for the floor, it's my conclusion that the Standing Committee takes note of the oral report and update provided by the Secretariat and provided by Morocco on behalf of Guinea. So thank you. I believe that will conclude our consideration of document 7.2.4. And it had been my hope to conclude all of 7.2 before lunch, but I'm wondering if we're running out of time. One moment, please. So in the interest of recognizing that we do have limited time and there is still about 10 minutes before our break from lunch, I suggest we open document 7.2.5, the application of Article 13 in Nigeria, and we will see how far we get before lunch. So I will invite the Secretariat to please introduce document 7.2.5.
Thank you, Madam Chair. At SC 70 and SC 74, the Standing Committee reviewed the effective implementation of CITES in Nigeria in accordance with the provisions of Article 13 of the Convention. At SC 70, the Standing Committee adopted a set of recommendations which included, inter alia, a recommendation to suspend commercial trade in specimens of Pterocarpus erinaceus, and recommendations to Nigeria to take strong enforcement actions against organized criminal networks involved in the illegal trade in pangolins and ivory. At SC 74, the committee reviewed the progress made by Nigeria and agreed a new set of recommendations contained in the summary record of SC 74. The committee inter alia requested Nigeria to report on progress with the implementation of the committee's recommendations in time for the present meeting. Pursuant to this recommendation, Nigeria submitted a report to the Secretariat in May 2022. The report is available in the annex to the present document in English only. The Secretariat has assessed Nigeria's report and shares its findings in the present document. In sum, the Secretariat acknowledges Nigeria's progress with the implementation of some of the Standing Committee's recommendations, in particular those related to the handling and disposal of seized stockpiles of CITES-listed species, and certain legislation and law enforcement-related provisions. The Secretariat welcomes, in particular, the finalization of the National Strategy on Wildlife and Forest Crime in Nigeria, and the establishment of a special wildlife office under the Nigeria Customs Service. The Secretariat also welcomes Nigeria's responsiveness and looks forward to further supporting the party under the Compliance Assistance Program. The Secretariat proposes that the Standing Committee revise and update its recommendations adopted at SC 74, as suggested in paragraph 25 of the present document. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Secretariat. Thank you for that report and for drawing the committee's attention to paragraph 25, where the Standing Committee is invited to revise and update its recommendations by agreeing the revised recommendations found in paragraph 25. Again, with the indulgence of the Standing Committee, I will see if Nigeria is present and wishes to react. Nigeria, please, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Since this is the first time we are taking the stage, we want to thank the government of Panama for well-organized meeting like this. And we thank them for all their efforts to see that we are all here. We acknowledge the scale of the wildlife crime crisis taking place in Nigeria. The organized criminal groups utilize our country as a source and transit hub for illicit wildlife products, as well as documented in a cause for serious concern for the Nigerian government. As recognized in SC 75.7.2.5, Nigeria is very pleased to announce the launch of the National Strategy on Combating Wildlife and Forest Crime in Nigeria. We have come with a lot of copies, and which they'll be ready to distribute the hard copies and also the soft copies. This strategy serves to address many of the capacity and compliance gaps that have existed in CITES and wildlife law enforcement in Nigeria, and we are encouraged that its implementation is already making great strides towards CITES implementation and compliance in our country. With regard to the recommendation by the Secretariat concerning the law enforcement, we are pleased to report that Nigeria is working with the USAID, WABILET project, and the INL Enhancement Wildlife Law Enforcement Capacity in West African project to establish a wildlife law enforcement task force for Nigeria. The task force will serve as an implementation mechanism for our national strategy and will address the need for cooperation between all relevant and national authorities. Nigeria has already undertaken needs as a next assessment process for the establishment of this task force and hope that it will be operational by the early 2023. Nigeria further notes that these efforts are also integral to the national and regional implementation of the West African strategy in combating wildlife crime. And we are looking forward to discussing the West African strategy in the COP19. A lot of processes have been done towards making sure that we checkmate the illegal wildlife trade, particularly on rosewood. Since the suspension of rosewood, there's no certificate or permit has been given to anybody, to export rosewood from Nigeria. Chair, we note in particular the recommendation in this document inviting importing parties to share with the Secretariat the legislative and enforcement arrangements they have made or put in place to sanction illegal trade in Pterocarpus erinaceus, and inviting these parties to strengthen cooperation between range states and importing countries. Nigeria strongly supports this recommendation, and we cannot hope to fully stem the illegal trade without the true support of the consumer parties. And in this regard, Nigeria has entered into MOU with Cameroon,
Timber
and
has been
also
a very reliable source of survival
in
for
the
several years.
process, we are about to sign MOU with Vietnamese. Also, quite a lot of processes have been done. We have been able to train our prosecutors, our judges, also increase participation at our borders, and then the seized items or specimen, approval has been obtained to destroy them, and we are at the point of destroying these seized items. And also, the CITES Secretariat is helping us with a CAPS, that's Compliance Assistance Program. We have supplied all the necessary information that is needed. We are just ready to receive the funds so that we can start the implementation. Madam Chair, I hope that this initiative by Nigeria serves to demonstrate our commitment towards addressing wildlife crime and enhancing our compliance with CITES requirements. However, this is not a matter of Nigeria. This is not a matter that Nigeria can handle alone. We very much need the assistance of CITES in identifying and apprehending those criminals responsible for the large-scale criminal activities taking place in our country. The resources required for these tasks are significant, and we are looking forward to discussing during the COP19 with a new CITES enforcement fund assist our country in addressing this challenge more effectively. Nigeria once again thanks the Secretariat for its support and assistance, and we are at the Secretariat's disposal to ascertain how best to continue the enhancement process. And we are hoping that at the end of this COP19, the suspension will be lifted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nigeria. I am going to thank the Secretariat and thank Nigeria for the report and for the comments. I'd like to draw the committee's attention to paragraph 25 and the updated recommendations. I will see in the next few minutes if there's any reactions from first the members of the committee to the updated recommendations. I'll also see if I have reactions from observer parties. Belgium, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We acknowledge the process made by Nigeria and support all recommendations of the Secretariat. Thank you.
Thank you, Belgium. Again, I will see if there are any interventions from members of the committee and from observer parties. I would also invite 1 or 2 quick interventions from observers. So, seeing no requests for the floor, with our thanks to Nigeria for your further information, it's my understanding that the Standing Committee agrees to revise and update its recommendations as documented and found in paragraph 25, paragraphs 1 through 6. So that would conclude our consideration of Doc 7.2.5, and this would be a good time, I'm sure, for everyone to break for lunch. I will see if there are any logistical announcements before we break for lunch, and I understand that the video that our colleagues from Sierra Leone mentioned is available for viewing here during the lunch break. Any further logistical announcements? 2? Great. Well, then have a good lunch, everyone, and I will see everyone back here at 2 p.m. Thank you. And since no one's left the room, I think we do have an announcement about voting cards for tomorrow. So, Secretariat, please.
So the voting cards will be available at the information booth during the lunch break. So if you can go right in the middle of the lobby, my colleague will proceed there, and you can pick up your voting cards then for the parties. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretariat.
Timber has been a very reliable source of survival for Sierra Leoneans, especially the youth, who are largely dependent on activities around logging to take care of themselves and their families. However, on March 28, 2022, CITES Convention suspended commercial trade in timber, which has left millions of logs that were cut prior to the ban to perish in different parts of the country.
My name is Mohamed Ali Mansouri. I'm the manager of this wood company in Songo. This woods, we bought them since November 2021. Then after that, we have a ban on March 2022. And we cannot export the woods now. It's because we cannot export the wood now, we have so many losses. So please, we are pleading to the government to see how best they can do to allow us exporting this wood, because if they still stay here, they will depreciate their values.
Many unemployed youth are pleading for the ban to be lifted, even if temporarily, to enable the exportation of the logs that had already been cut before the ban came into force. This, they say, will invariably alleviate their suffering.
Would they beg to the government to go to the leader there? The one who is responsible for lifting it in there. How many lift with this ban here for this timber? And like now for only 6 months, or you reach or you pass, no problem for low clear. In the same condition, some of we get family there. Me like what in Apsu, I guess 7 people who they bear me. If they see now, possible they can suffer not one with the same condition now. So they beg the international committee with that concern towards this year. When they lift with this ban here. So most of some of my company, then in the street right now, so then they do. Once you see some of them, they go and do bad in the street. Most of them will check them at Timberman there because of this okay stop. So now we check with brother, most of them are in the cause trouble when they smoke that when they get that cruise. Because now the frustrate can cause that. But more time if you get outside your church, you engage, or net cam or even 10 cam, you go now you go lay down. But most of the right hand then are because they frustrate.
Look now, we don't see a poke now there. How they live, one load in the country problem right now. Work now in this country, the timber back they live power, the local.
We therefore take the log them, pin them in a container, pack it in order to work, to even close the container, one over them. They pay off. This job and how they pray to all the governments help with the job come back. Women themselves now no respect to because they get money. Any area when I get job as youth man, next one they go there, they get no living. Or then call canal with the stream. Most of my company who it's gonna be good man then. Some man turn to thief man, dinner streets. Some man turn as a boy. It's an idea in different way. You know they in good order self again. They sound like somebody who is gentle in our community because the work who sign be the guy. don't call loss. And the work I want, we see any day, early morning, evening time, we there all night. Now we able day, then we call we good youth man. Part of this job, there are no good youth man in this community. So problems there, and it's one at a person thief is that.
Now when somebody idle, now they go patriotic conduct. But if you not idle, they go engage. And if you then lift this ban here, all the youth man them, with the help of Papa Gomi, they lift the ban, then go engage for them work same. And then go deep for them loading and they offloading, they go make them they abstain from violence. If somebody call and say for go fetch or for go by election business or campaign or then go tell the person, now how would they sustain yourself, now how would they get to survival. Then go rather prefer them day, then they go deep see where they count disturbance for them or we will disturb their work. So you know with the priority conduct.
This suffering is not only limited to the youth, as all the women and children are currently going through the hardest of times owing to the halt in timber activities.
And we will be the suffer. Now oyster and cockle will be the pool. What mangrove wood? Say you go sell that mangrove, they sell that cockle, it not be easy for me. But this timber way been come. The day when we see them begin putting my, we've been glad because we don't get, we say picking they can't work, we say they get, we say they hit. So when they AC timber, then they load up at the motor car, then they pay them. Any motor car where they flop, then they pay them. So when they pay them, like me on picking, they put 50,000, put in my pocket, the balance, they go give me all. Say, Mama, go buy this. Maybe they go to school, but he left the school because of money, no day. Why not in the work now for me picking there for pay for the small one there? And he do it for me. For his timber, he stop now. Hey, me brother, right now, so it's a God and this day not easy. It's not easy. Pastor gather we self back, we go broke stone. And stone they broke right now, we survive so. And remember our stone work, it's not easy for you, now so pain. You got for pay school, you got for do this. Now you know how the country, the rest down there, all things down there. Who still go able to get at this stone here? So do you with the big una the Papa government, una the government, all this. We are let help we for God and be there. They left this team and let go able stand again like how we be stand. We picking them they suffer. We say so bond we they suffer. Tell to we Papa there. Tell to we picking them. Let if not work on salon they are big because work not there. If they work they see the man they know they picking them no day. How we go able to survive?
In a country where youth unemployment is already a serious problem, shutting down one of the few reliable sources of employment only worsens the living condition of a large majority of civilians.